Hello everyone, welcome to this session. Today's topic is IDRAC, or BMC, known as Baseboard Management Controller or out-of-band management of your servers. To bring these devices into your environment, it's a simple matter of having the IDRAC or BMC root credentials or administrator credentials, and then we use a Redfish protocol to go and bring these into the environment. Once they're in your environment, you're going to have them similar to what you see here. Again, these can be IDRACs on some sort of a vFlex, a VxRail, any server. It doesn't matter. As long as it has an IDRAC, we can pull that into the system. Now I just want to show you what we can get in terms of a detail mode from these devices. You'll notice here in the middle of the screen where we have the firmware, we're listing out all of the firmware on this component. You're not just seeing the lifecycle controller firmware, you're seeing all the firmware on this device here. I'll scroll through the pages here. You can see a list of some of the things that we are displaying here. On the right, you'll see the versions. You'll actually see, in some cases, the previous version, what is the installed version, and actually the current version. You'll notice on the upper right, we have a reference tree indicating all the components we have found regarding that BMC. For example, fans, memory, NICs. And with a simple right-click options, if you want to get performance, you can simply come in here and go to Key Metrics, and it will show you the performance metrics related to that. At the top level here, we're going to see everything, but you can also do it at the component level. On the upper left here, on the details page, we're seeing things around the CPU. This is more refined information regarding those components, the CPU, the network storage, power supplies. Simple right-click options will allow you to see details and performance of those components as well. You'll also have an alarms tab that's going to point out all of the alarms that we've received against that particular component. So these could be SNMP alerts. We can still accept SNMP from the BMC or the IDRAC, but you'll also see Redfish alerts, which are that protocol that we use to discover and communicate with that baseboard management controller. Other items here. You're going to have access to the Actions tab for all of your IDRACs. Similar to switches, you can go to the command line and perform actions. And it's just a matter of coming in here and finding the action you want. It could be a show, configuration, a manager, or diagnostic, or it could be one of your custom rack admin commands. Simply come into the appropriate area and execute the script that you would like to see. Select the option that you may want to see here, and then simply schedule that to run. If it's a configuration command, that's more appropriate for scheduling, but on demand, you're probably just going to execute directly from here to see the results of that particular action. Change management. If you're familiar with the software, this is the drift detection aspect of a configuration file. We are backing up the server configuration profiles of your IDRACs, so we will be able to do drift detection against those as well. And drift detection is the ability for us to detect a change in those config files. And so you can be alerted and be notified when those kind of things are occurring. If you want to run that process on demand, you would simply select the change determination here and run it, and it would let you know if there's any differences. A deeper level here is our ProScans and the compliance policies, where you can actually specify specific settings in the config file, the server configuration profile that you want to scan for. And you can execute those on demand if you want to check for things, but more typically these are scheduled as a group operation, and then you're notified via email when a compliance policy or ProScan has failed a particular check. When we discover these, you can also include things like an SNMP interface, which will give you access to go directly to the MIB browser for that device. If you have a command line interface, you'll have that rack admin access. You can go right to the terminal session and run your own rack admin commands right on the device's command line. And then you can also add a web interface to take you directly to the Dell IDRAC UI. And if you need to get onto that user interface, you would simply click this and it will take you right to that IP address and that web interface. As I mentioned, we are backing up the server configuration profiles. You can come in here and look at the latest config. Simply just view it if you want to. You can also come in and compare the last two configs, very similar to a switch config. We're going to point out all the differences, a very nice troubleshooting tool for you. You can also do on-demand backups, on-demand restore of a configuration profile, and you can even do deployment of firmware from this screen. Generally, backups are put into a schedule, so you don't need to do them on demand. They will either be invoked automatically from the change determination process when a change is detected, or you'll have it in a scheduled group where you will back up all of your server configuration profiles at a specific time. For restore, you simply select the configuration file for that device you want to restore, and it will bring that up for you. On the deploy side, simply click into that. If you want to deploy firmware, you would simply select the target devices and then select the firmware that you want to deploy. In this case, maybe I want to put an IDRAC 2.9.1 on this device, so I can come in here and select multiple equipment, or I can even add groups. I may have created groups of devices, maybe based on racks, or it may have been based on just specific information that you have on how you want to group your servers. However it is, you can simply come in here and add one or more groups, and it will validate if there are servers in there that can accept this configuration. Then you would simply come in and schedule this or execute it on demand. So it's an easy way to keep all of your servers up to date with one easy action. Again, you can also get top-level performance here. I will just show you an example of that. And so here's an example of a BMC performance. So we're getting things like fan speeds. You're seeing health status, variety of things here regarding the information about that device. You can get power output, temperature, voltage, all those sorts of things are available to you. And then you can chart those over a short period of time if you choose to. Pick an attribute, and it will show you that as you observe. And then finally, group management. As I mentioned, there's a grouping that you can do, and you'll notice at the bottom here I have grouped some things. I could come into a group for a specific action. I can right-click and say File Management and do a backup restore or deploy a firmware just to that group. So it's a nice way for you to, if you're managing by groups, to do those sorts of things in a group operation sort of fashion. On that note, you can also do that from the Manage Resources. You can do multi-select up here. And with the use of buttons, these are simply the actions to do these sorts of things like deploy firmware or maybe turn the power off or on or power cycle or get IDRAC info. I could simply come in here and tie that to one of these buttons. Simply click that, tell it what I want to see here. Maybe I want to see information about the NIC. Simply select that and execute. And so here you can see the results are provided for the two servers I selected, just some basic, this is the command that it sent, get IDRAC NIC, and then some information about that NIC. Or if I go to the device I selected, I'm seeing that NIC information. So it's a very easy way to get quick access to information from a device. Another thing I want to point out here on the configuration profiles, on this one particular device here, I've selected the 954.9 box. You'll see all the configuration files in here. It's very easy for me to come in and compare any two different files. Depending on what they are, I can simply come in here. We'll just compare two here. I've selected these two down here below, version 6 and 10. And so there you see I can compare those two files as well. It's very easy to also come in here and select a file and simply edit it and put in your changes, whatever they are, and save it. And essentially that will create a new version for you that you can easily come in here and just say right click and restore directly from this option. And then finally here on the reporting side of things, we have a variety of reports here around firmware changes. So as your firmware gets updated, the changes would be reflected on this report. Or if you want to see just a basic inventory report, we have preceded reports that will do that for you. Just an example here, I will show you an example of a report. Here's a firmware report showing a specific IDRAC here. Let's see if we can find that 54.9 box right here. So here's our 54.9. We're seeing all those same versions here reported out in their firmware versions on the right here. Similar to what we saw in that details panel, they would all be listed here. If you want to get more refined, it's very easy to copy a file here and or copy a report and refine it to a specific thing. Maybe you just want to see the IDRAC controller in its firmware version. You simply set a little filter on the report and it's going to only show that to you. So here you see 54.8 server and the 54.9 and their lifecycle controller versions. Okay, I hope that was useful to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.